see your sweet smile is etched in my memory, so I know you well. Mornings in air, sharing our secrets. We'd walk until the morning's gone. We were like children, laughing for hours. The joy you gave me lives on and on. 'Cause I know I still hear your voice. I still hear your voice on warm summer nights, whispering right through. In all the leaves were turning, I walked down roads of orange I saw your sweet smile. I heard your laughter. You're still here beside cause I drift by my window, falling leaves of red and gold. I see your lips, the summer kisses, the sunburned hands I used to hold since you went away. The days grow long and soon I'll hear old winter song but I miss you most of all, my darling. When autumn leaves start to fall. Since you went away, the days grow long, and soon I'll hear old winter song. But I miss you most of all, my darling. When autumn leaves start to fall, I miss you most of all, my darling. When autumn leaves start to wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Who's that yonder dressed in red? Wade in the water. Must be the children that Moses led. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Who's that yonder dressed in white? Wade in the water. Must be the children of Israel. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble Children that's coming through, God's gonna trouble the world. Yeah. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children. In the water, God's gonna trouble the world. You don't believe I've been redeemed. Gonna trouble water, wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade. God's gonna trouble you remember me when the west wind moves among the fields above. You can tell the sun in his jealous sky when we walked in fields of gold. So she took her love for to gaze a while among the fields of barley. In his arms she fell as her hair came down among the fields of gold. Will you stay with me? Will you be my love among the fields of barley? And you can tell the sun in his jealous sky when we walked in fields of gold. I never made promises lightly. There have been some that I broke. We walk in fields of gold. I never made promises lightly. There have been some that I've broken, but I swear in the days still left, we'll walk in fields of gold. We'll walk in fields of gold. Many years have passed since those summer days among the fields of barley. See the children run as the sun goes down. jealous sky when we walked in fields of gold. When we walked in fields of gold. Traveled and much have I seen. Dark distant mountains with valleys of green, as painted deserts. The sun sets on fire as he carries me home to the Moluccan town. Good afternoon. Welcome here today as we say a fond farewell to one of life's gentlemen, Mr. Malcolm Lee Smith. My name is Barbara Gilbury, and along with the Parkside family and Malcolm's family, I'd like to thank you for joining us in this celebration of his life. We also acknowledge those watching from afar on live stream. Could I ask everyone to take a moment to check your telephones, please? Malcolm passed away peacefully at Wynyard Care Centre on the 5th of September, surrounded by his family. He was 92 years old. To Malcolm's family and friends, you have already built a library in your hearts. All the moments spent with him before you had to part. Call upon it whenever you like. Pick a moment to see it through. The library acts as a promise. They will never forget you. Malcolm Lee Smith, often known as Chief to those young, was born in Delrain on the 28th of April 1930 to parents deceased and surviving Brian and Wanda. He attended school at the Western Creek Graveside, where I'm told he and his siblings would walk a good fair mile to get there. Most of his young life was spent outdoors, trapping rabbits in western tiers. On leaving school, he worked on the road crew on the new road at Doctor's Rocks. A little coincidental as the new road goes through there today. It was here in Wynyard at one of the dances he spied a young lass called Nancy June Jones. They dated a few times, and then Nancy decided she was off to Hobart to work there. She obtained work in the jam factory. Knowing that she might not return to the northwest anytime soon, Malcolm followed, being a little taken by this girl. However, the couple eventually returned to Wynyard and married in 1949. As their children, Kerry, now deceased, Sandra, Maureen, Rosemary, Andrew, deceased, John and Jason, as the children came along, Malcolm worked for a time at the local garage and then on to the pulp mill in Burnie. Along with his main job, Malcolm was a bookmaker up at Stanley for the horse racing. Watching horse racing remained one of his passions, even having a share in a racehorse and some greyhounds in his younger years. In his late 50s, Malcolm retired from work. I'd now like to invite his grandson, Josh Mundy, up to continue his pop's story.
So, depending on how you knew him, Malcolm, Pop, Chief, was a real character. And we all saw him from slightly different points of view. Uncle Jackie, Nan's brother, who liked to give nicknames to all and sundry, decided that Malcolm would be called Chief, as he was the boss. It was a nickname that was also affectionately used by all who worked for him at the pulp mill. It stuck with him for the rest of his days. So I just every year of his life, or even every meaningful period, but we can say some things that show the heart of this very special man that we all love so much. Pop had some fond memories of his time growing up in Graveside in the shadow of the Great Western Tiers. He would tell us one story that what would pass for entertainment in the bush in those days. He was mates with two brothers, Wilf and Watty, that he would play with, if that's what you could call it. When they weren't spending time trapping rabbits, they would shoot at each other for fun, with live ammunition, of course, using the nearby trees as shelter, listening for shrapnel whizzing past their ears. Many stories about Malcolm appear to be in line with his Irish heritage. All through his life it seemed if something could go wrong, it would, and sometimes in spectacularly entertaining fashion. But they also contained the luck of the Irish more often than not. Many of these stories involved machinery and slight miscalculations. From one of these stories, in his younger years, you might be surprised to hear Malcolm didn't mind a beer. And one evening after stopping at the football club, he came home and parked straight up the driveway. Came inside, sat down, started eating his tea. A few minutes later, there was a loud bang. Everyone looked around at each other. Nan went up to the curtain, looked out the front and said, "A car's crashed into the neighbour's fence." And then she said, "It's a car that looks exactly like yours, Malcolm." She looked back up the driveway to notice that the car was missing. So she added, "I think it's your car, Malcolm." With that, Pop got up, went outside, drove the car straight back up the driveway, presumably with the handbrake on this time, and then came back inside, continued his tea like nothing had happened. Now, if you know this driveway, you realise that this really was quite a testament to his driving ability. That he managed to line the car up so perfectly that it didn't hit either the house or the fence on the way out. There are members of our family that shy away from driving up that driveway at any time, let alone after recovery. The car then spent a couple of days over at his oldest son Kerry's getting repaired, which was probably a bit of payback for the amount of times he had to tow Kerry's car back home over the years. After 32 years at the Pop, starting as a fitter and working his way all the way up as leading hand, and ending his days there as a well-liked paper beat man that I would hear about and see while growing up, seemed gone once he got the golden watch. He and Nan used this time well and went on many adventures together. In the early years following Pop's retirement, they drove all over the country from coast to coast, making friends and visiting people. In later years, they'd spend the time at the Gold Coast and would visit and stay with me and my wife Joanna in Sydney, sometimes for a couple of weeks at a time on the way back to Tasmania. It was wonderful to watch them together during those years as they traipsed around the shopping centres, window shopping and generally having a nice time. They were like a couple of cute, giggling teenagers to watch. It was very nice to see, and I treasure that time we got to spend. There are so many stories from their travels that we won't go into, but one of these trips to the mainland he learned the masterful skill of beer can art. At one point in time, pretty much every nail and hook in the house had one of these beer can mobiles swinging from them. One of his proudest creations was a biplane he'd crafted out of many beer cans, which took pride of place in the bar and the back room. And during one of our annual family Christmas gatherings, after perhaps, again, a couple of beers, he decided to show off his brand new fly rod. So right there in the back room, he started demonstrating how to cast the rod. It's not a large room, but letting out more and more line with each cast until finally the last big cast caught his beer can biplane and it flew from one side of the room to the other, smashing into the wall in dramatic fashion. The biplane was no more. And with that, the fly rod was promptly packed away and never saw a drop of water. Once they'd finished touring, Malcolm spent a lot of time at the golf club and became a much-loved lifetime member. It's been said that he'd play golf 2 days a week, but would spend more days helping Michelle in the workshop doing maintenance on the machines. Even yesterday, Lester at the golf club said from that he saved them a fortune over the years. All of Pop's children have stories, and while some of them are not repeatable, but funny, what it really shows is how many ways we can see a person. But there are some characteristics of Pop's that keep coming up. He loved his family, and there are many of us to love. So you'll see in the photos later at the golf club. Here are just a few more points about him in no particular order that can be said of Malcolm. He was a gentleman. Not a suit and tie gentleman, but an odd spoonful of castor oil. He loved calling to see Jason at work and helping him out. He was a proud member of his neighbourhood watch for 25 years, with a plaque that you'll see later that they can certificate. And he's the only man we knew that had done a milk run on horse and cart, and that was still a thing. So now I'll hand over to another grandchild, Daniel Franks, to say some more words.
Thanks, Josh. Golf was obviously a really big part of Pop's life. Hold on to that. As you can see, obviously the Guard of Honour with some golf club members in there. A few of Josh's stories. I'm sure if you've ever been to Pop's shed, you would have seen about 8 million golf balls, which would evidence that as well. And certainly something I guess he was known for, even in his older ages, how his golf game maintained. Like he always continued to hit the ball really long. And I guess for me, that was probably my most enduring connection with Pop was around golf. I started to play heaps of golf in my 20s. I still remember playing every time I'd go and play with him. He had a good 40 or 50 years on me, or I suppose I had 40 or 50 years on him, and I could just never beat him. So I don't know, but that probably says something about his golf game and mine as well. But so I'm just going to read a poem that was chosen by the family, which obviously has a bit of a golf tone to it. Up in the stars in a pale blue light, there's a golf game in motion. It's a breathtaking sight. Dad's doing very well, golfing into the dawn of a new day. A hole-in-one in heaven, now onto the Milky Way. On the tee of the Milky Way as he studies his next aim, addressing his position in his celestial golf game. It's a golf match made in heaven as Dad rips it clean out of sight. Golf buddies he hasn't seen in years shake their heads to his delight. The sun off in the distance, the heavenly sky is sure to astound. A perfect day of golf in heaven. How about another round?
So just in finishing, above all else, we know that Malcolm was a family man. 7 children, 14 grandchildren, 17 great-grandchildren, which he variously called Joeys, Varmints, Wallabies. Every Friday since Nan passed, the kids and many of the grandkids and great-grandkids would congregate at his house for lunch. That is now sorely missed. We as a family would also like to thank his neighbour of many years, Noeline, that would in later years check to see if his curtains would open every morning and call someone if they didn't. And also all the staff that looked after him at the Wynyard Care Centre in his final years. Lastly, I remember one of the many times I stayed in Nan and Pop's as a teenager. I got into an argument with Jason. It wasn't uncommon. And within that argument, I said something careless about Pop. Nan overheard and pulled me up and said, "Your Pop's a good man, Joshua." And I think that sums him up very well. He was a good man, he was a family man, and we're very lucky to have him in our lives as long as we did. Sleep well, Chief. You've earned it.
You are warmly invited for refreshments at the Wynyard Golf Club, where a photo montage of Malcolm will be run, a time to share your individual memories of him. Would you please join me, if you wish, in the Lord's Prayer? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. For those who are able, could you please stand? The clock of life is wound but once, and no one has the power to tell just where the hands stop. But stop it will. However, the special memories your family have of you, Malcolm, will never stop. Indeed, they will be handed down the generational line to be kept alive for what you lived for, your family. As for your other love, the game of golf, the famous golfer Jack Lemmon said, "No trouble meeting new friends and reuniting with the old ones in the celestial course." ones thank you for the gift you have been to them. Malcolm Lee Smith, may you rest in peaceful sleep as we lower you to meet your Nancy alongside your son Kerry, knowing that you will be forever loved and terribly missed. A son, a brother, a husband, a father, a pop, a gentleman he will always be. Deep peace rest with you.
Hold your hand and adore. Afraid of love. And is a gold and the sweet sunset
You're right. Good signing, really.